So today on the Person of the Week for the Haverford7 show, I'm meeting with Trudy Graboyes, and we have a very interesting story about her son, Zach. Trudy, welcome to the Haverford7 show.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the story. Actually, you know, before we even talk about the story, I want to talk a little bit about you and your interesting background too, because you're an actress and you have a very interesting job. Tell us a little bit about that for just a second.
Well, I'm a standardized patient, which means...
And what does that mean? You're sick all the time.
No, no. That I am a hospital actress for the National Board of Osteopathic Medicine. Sometimes I work at University of Penn as well, and sometimes I work for law firms. And we are given a case, and there are 12 of us. And sometimes there are 2 pods, which means there are 12 in each pod. And in the 4th year of a medical student, osteopathic medical student.
Easy for you to say.
Academic career, they have to take a test.
Okay.
So that means they have to come in and they do an informal interview, physical, and we decide based on certain criteria whether they are going to pass this test or not. So the average score of the 12 actors that are being evaluated, and actually we're evaluating them, is their grade. And if they don't pass, they don't go on to do the residency. So I do that very often. Right. And sometimes I do videos for them as well.
So you are a professional patient.
Yes, I am.
That's very cool. Well, you know, and our story is about, you know, being a patient in part, right? So let's talk a little bit about your son, Zach, who is how old now?
Zach is now 22 years old.
22. So that is the end of the story. We'll get there in a moment. Let's kind of get to the beginning of the story, which is kind of, you know, a rough story here.
Right.
So he was 10, right,
where
the story begins.
Yes, and he was on his way to visit the neighborhood toy store. And I didn't want him to go, and we had a little argument, and then I figured, well, you know, he's so cautious, go. So he went, and he was hit by a car and thrown 100 feet.
Wow.
So he broke his jaw and fractured his pelvis and had severe brain trauma. So anyway, this was September 30th of 2002. Wow. And it was right before Halloween. My daughter was getting ready for Halloween and putting up decorations, and he was on his way to the store, and I heard helicopters and sirens. And
right, because he only went up the street here.
This is
for those who remember, right up here on Eagle Road, there was the Mapes, you know, store there at the time that's no longer there.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was where this all took place, right?
Right, exactly. So I went to find him because he hadn't come home when he was supposed to, and I saw crowds of people.
And you're here, so you're just sitting here, you're hearing sirens, and you're starting to get a little concerned. What's going on over there?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I drove over there, and I didn't see him, and of course I started to panic, and started to come home, and then turned back around and went over to a female police officer and asked her what had happened, and she said that a 10-year-old, actually an 8-year-old because he was very short for his age, was hit by a car. And I said, well, my son hasn't come home, and she asked me what he was wearing, and we established that it was him.
Wow.
So she, on her walkie-talkie, said, I think I've got the mother here, and one police officer took my car, and the other took me down to CHOP, where I was met by a social worker who brought me into the intensive care unit, the ER. And it didn't even look like him. His face was all swollen and he was bandaged. And the only thing that I could do was just talk to him because I felt that he could hear me. And I said, you know, I'm here for you, and we're gonna come out of this. I'm gonna bring you home. So anyway, it was a very long recovery. We were hoping that he would survive, and
that wasn't completely clear at the time, right?
No.
These are not minor injuries we're talking about.
No. So they had to put a stent in and make sure that the bleeding was not severe. And they put him in an induced coma because...
Right, to try to protect his brain.
Exactly. Yeah. And they actually had to save his left leg, which they did do. And once they did that, then the physical part, then the mental started coming back, and started coming back quickly. So he was in an induced coma for about 9 days. And then he yawned, and he was with his father at that time, and he started coming out of the coma. And once he did, it wasn't like television where you had, oh, hello, here I am, I'm so glad.
People don't understand that Hollywood does not do us any favors when it comes to a lot of medical things. But yeah, people don't come out of comas like, you know, alert and just having memory loss. Right?
No, he had to relearn everything. He had to relearn how to speak, how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, everything. And he did it very quickly because he was young, and I suppose the neurons in his brain kept falling into place quickly, and his sister Jennifer really helped him. She was there every day. There was a tremendous amount of family support, a tremendous amount of support from the community.
Well, and that's part of why I wanted to sit down and have this conversation with you, because I mean, this is part of what this story is about, is the fact that, you know, I mean, this is a really, you know, kind of caring, supportive community when they have a chance, you know, when they actually know what's going on. And so tell me a little bit about what you saw from you know, people you knew and people you didn't know. People
that I mean, all the churches in the area, all the synagogues in the area, every elementary school, every day we would get letters, garbage bags filled with letters from various schools and people that just wanted to help. And there was a collection from his, from his elementary school. And they put up a big picture called Apples for Zach. And so every family that contributed would have this apple from the family put onto the tree, and there was a considerable amount of money that was collected just so that maybe family or friends could come and get free parking, you know, we can give them this money type of thing. And it just went on and on for months and months. And the principal of his of Oakmont Elementary School at the time, Robert Young, was there all the time. And if he couldn't get to the hospital, then he would be calling. And they wanted to have a luncheon I mean, they just couldn't do enough. And then there was an article put into the newspapers, and a documentary was made about Zach, and all of it actually helped. I took all the letters and things that were given to us, and I just pasted it all over his wall so that when he came back that he would see all the support that he was getting from the community.
Yeah. And so he did recover. I mean, he, you know, again, you know, I worked at Bryn Mawr Rehab years ago, and you know, one of the things they always used to say is that if you're going to get a brain injury, get it young, because our brains actually can heal much better when we're younger than when we're older. And
I'll tell you something, I really feel that music had a lot to do with his recovery.
There's that stimulation of the brain. And,
So I would sing to him every night, and he came out of his coma singing. And his favorite group, Maroon 5, which we did end up meeting in the end.
Really?
Somebody got us tickets to the concert and a backstage pass, and so we got to meet Adam Levine and all of his buddies, and that was a wonderful thing for Zach. So we've got all these pictures
I'm sure
of that happening.
Was very happy.
Yes, he was, and he really is a miracle, because I mean, I was met by the person that put his jaw back into place and by the person who was in the helicopter that took him over to CHOP when the accident occurred. They all said, you know, your prayers are answered, because he really was not supposed to survive.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
and not only did he survive, but he's currently at Penn State main campus.
Well, yeah, let's fast forward now to the happy ending kind of this story. So, I mean, after this huge tragedy, you know, certainly a lovely discovery of the community that we're all in, and that kind of support and outpouring. But then, you know, you're making it sound, I think, a whole lot simpler than it was. I mean, this is a long process of recovery, and you were, you know, doing a ton of work there, it sounds like, to be there for him.
Yeah.
But now he's 22. He's a student at the main campus at Penn State, right? And he's, what, an average student?
No, he excels. He's an honor student at Penn State. He's studying environmental studies, and he actually wrote a memoir about his accident and the recovery process. And there's talk at Penn State about making it into a documentary. So we'll see what happens with that. He just recently, yesterday, in fact, got in touch with 2 of his 3 therapists, because he went through physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy
for a long time, I'm sure.
And he hadn't spoken to them in 9 years. So he spoke to them yesterday, and they'll probably meet, and maybe there'll be an addition to the memoir about them, who were fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of.
Well, we're very fortunate to have such good medical institutions all around us here. I mean, that's one of the good things about being in the greater Philadelphia area. We've got lots of good places, and CHOP is certainly one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing. So I mean, he goes from a young 10-year-old boy who is fighting for his life and has a serious brain injury, is in a coma, and now he's an honor student at Penn State main campus. He's written a book.
Right.
Maybe we'll see him, maybe they'll do the Hollywood version of this movie, because it sounds like they probably could.
I want someone famous playing me.
Exactly. We'll see. We'll get Maroon 5 to do the music track for it.
Yeah,
right?
that would be pretty cool. He's amazing. And yeah, the recovery was, years, really. I mean, he was in CHOP for 2.5 months, but even after that, it was years before he came back around, and he's doing obviously so well.
That is terrific. Well, I'm very happy that you're willing to share this story with us. We're going to have to try to track Zach down if we can in his busy travels of being a famous author and documentarian potentially, and see if we can get his 2 cents on his own story at some point if we can do that. But
we would
this
love
is great.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Trudy, thanks for being on the Haverford7 show. Thanks for being our person of the week. Although I guess really Zach is the person of the week, but you're telling his story for him for us. And it's just a great story about what life in Haverford Township, what lies right below the surface the minute there's a need, and when people know about what's going on, they come out and they support and they help. So that's
oh, absolutely. I mean, the restoration of human nature and goodness was given to us after that accident.
That's terrific. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.